Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Veganuary Fireside Chat. We are so thrilled to have you here. My name is Lisa Levinson, and I am the Campaigns Director for In Defense of Animals. And we have a lot of our team here today to tell you a little bit about Veganuary and our special programs for this month, and also how all of our campaigns relate to veganism. So this is something we've really wanted to bring you for a while, and we're thrilled to be able to do that. So today we have some of our team members here. I'm going to do just brief introductions. We've got Bob Price, who's our development director. Hi, Bob.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for coming, everybody. Pleased to see everyone.
Thank you. We also have Mary Easonsey with our development team. Hi, Mary.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Yes, and then I'll just do brief introductions of our special speakers today, who are our campaigners. So we've got Leah Wilborn.
Hi.
And we have, and she is our Farmed Animals Campaign Director. She will lead us off with our talking points today, but we'll do just brief introductions to everyone first. And then we'll have Jack Gescheit, who's our Thule Elk consultant.
Hence the background.
Thank you, Jack. And then we'll have Katie Nolan, who's our Wild Animals Campaign Specialist. Hi, Katie.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you. And then we'll have Brittany Michelson, who is our Captive Animals Campaign Specialist.
Hello. Thank you for joining.
Wonderful. And then some of you may know Fleur Dawes, our Communications Director. She also is our Director of International Partnerships and is coming on today to talk about our dog meat campaign.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'm really super excited to talk about this topic.
Fantastic. So I think without any further ado, we will begin our program. I wanted to let you know that if you're chatting with us in the chat box, and we do encourage that, Mary Easonsey and probably Bob will be chatting with you, and we'll have lots of resources for you to try some of our alerts. We'll have vegan support resources for you as well. So stay tuned to the chat box. And our program today will be, our speakers will be our campaigners who are telling us a little bit more about their campaigns, and may show some slides about how their campaign relates to veganism. And then we will have an opportunity for some Q&A with all of you. So please do put your questions in the chat box. And we're so thrilled to have you all here. So next up, we'll have Leah. Hi, Leah. Are you ready for us?
Indeed. Hello, everyone. All right. Well, I am the Farmed Animals campaigner, so that's probably why I'm beginning. So I will share my screen with you all, and we will get started. All right. Doing that right now. All right. So I will begin by dealing with this aspect first, that healthy plant-based eating is something that virtually all of us in civilization are capable of. It's affordable and accessible, and that it's been scientifically proven by the top nutrition organizations in the world, including the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and many others, that humans can survive and thrive on a whole food plant-based diet that is well planned and well balanced, and can actually help reverse and prevent some of the top diseases. So since that is the case, that actually means then that we do not need to eat the flesh, milk and eggs of animals. Therefore, it becomes optional. And it actually is about the animals. That's what veganism is about, and that's what I'm here to represent. We are conditioned from birth to believe that it's normal, natural, and necessary to eat animals. And yet our intuition as children growing up, most of us care about animals. We love them. We want to be around them. We're fascinated by them. They bring us joy. And yet we're taught that it's okay to eat them. So that creates a cognitive dissonance in all of us. We have to suppress these natural feelings of compassion and empathy. Thus, animal agribusiness has gotten wise to this, and over the last few decades have come up with the humane scam, deceptive and false marketing tactics, certifications, and labels to get consumers to feel better and keep buying. So what animal welfare and better treatment while they're being exploited and killed, and how the animals are raised matters while you're seeing these advertisements in some of your major supermarkets of how humane everything is. It's completely ignoring the exploitation and killing that's going on behind the scenes. The advent of so much talk about how awful factory farming is, absolutely, this is at the heart. But what's underlying the factory farming issue is that small, local, organic, free-range, grass-fed, these are all labels that get you to feel better so you will keep buying. So this meme is the perfect example. I'd like to tell you how bad factory farming is. Wow, I'm so glad I spoke to you. From now on, I'll only buy humanely raised meat, dairy, and eggs. So I won't read the whole thing, but at the very end, great, got it. Factory farming is bad, so humane farming must be good. Now I can buy even more and feel good about it. So that is the issue with focusing only on factory farming. So what's happening here is the truth. On the right, these are male baby chicks considered useless in the egg industry. They are killed when they're first born. One of the most common methods is maceration, being blended alive. And then this is how we treat cows when they're so spent and exhausted and they're being forced onto a truck to the slaughterhouse. This, for instance, is what's known as, quote, cage-free, certainly not cruelty-free. So all animal farming equals slaughter. The standard practices in all animal farming is nothing that we would ever put our precious dogs and cats through. And yet they are mutilated without painkillers. They're forcibly impregnated. Their babies are taken from them. All kinds of horrors happen in legal standard practice farming that is actually meaning that humane animal farming does not exist and can't happen. Suffering is inevitable whenever someone's being used for their bodies. I want to connect everyone with the individuals. These are individuals who, pigs, for instance, are known to be even more intelligent and emotionally complex than dogs. Yet this is how we treat them. This is gas chambers, the most common method for killing pigs throughout the world. They scream and thrash and fight for their lives to get out. It is horrific death, and many are still conscious while being slaughtered. Speciesism is what it's the heart of all of this. The might makes right mentality, believing that they are ours to use, animals that are different from our companion animals, yet they are the same in all the ways that matter. We use culture, tradition, and profit as excuses and justification to continue doing this, and it's just another form of discrimination. These are the faces. These are the individuals. They are spray painted with numbers, treated like commodities, and yet look, like all of us, they just want to be comforted. They want to be safe. They want to be free to be with their families and their friends and enjoy their lives. So veganism is the principle that humans should live without exploiting animals. It's a simple concept. It's not just about what we eat. Another way that farmed animals are exploited is in entertainment, for instance. This is a rodeo. So I would like to read this quote to you. We cannot hope to have peace until we respect everyone, ourselves, and all living beings. We cannot defend and be kind to animals until we stop exploiting them in the name of science, sport, fashion, entertainment, and yes, exploiting them in the name of food. Cesar Chavez, labor leader and civil rights activist. So my Screen is freezing, I'm afraid. These are just some friends that I made personally at farm sanctuaries. That is Angel, beautiful Angel on the left. That is Ollie, the lamb. That is Petunia, the pig. She was blind when she was rescued. She'd fallen off a truck on its way to the slaughterhouse. And then Reggie, lovely Reggie, all with different personalities, different desires and wants. So veganism is moral urgency. It's not just food for thought. It's getting in touch with the fact that if there was an animal being abused in front of you, you would probably try to stop that from happening. So just because it's happening behind closed doors does not lessen the urgency. We must see things from the victim's perspective instead of our own convenience and how it matters to us. We must speak up for all animals. We must normalize veganism. There is nothing extreme about it. There is nothing extreme about defending all animals, not just some. What's extreme is what humans do to animals. So this is a justice movement for peace and nonviolence. It's not about just reducing and only taking part in exploitation and killing 1 day a week instead of 6 days a week. So this is what I'm trying to get across and want to get across to people. Put yourself in the victim's position. I will end with this. One day, the absurdity of the almost universal human belief in the slavery of other animals will be palpable. We shall then have discovered our souls and become worthier of sharing this planet with them. Martin Luther King, Jr. So I'd like to encourage you all to check out the resources that we have in the chat. We have our vegan wake-up call. We have an ongoing monthly vegan support group that will be happening a week from Monday. And we will be sharing more links in the chat. So thank you all for listening. And I will turn it over to the next wonderful advocate.
We appreciate what you shared with us, Leah, some of the hard truth, but also the moral agency, which is so key to your campaign with farmed animals and to all of our campaigns combined. So next, we'll invite Jack Gescheit. He is our Tuliot consultant to join us. He's also with the Tree Spirit Project. Tell us a little bit more, Jack, about how your campaign relates to veganism.
Indeed. Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks for the audience and thanks for all the campaigners getting together. It's great to be with the team here and all explain how this all has to do intertwined with veganism. So behind me are the Tule elk of Point Reyes National Seashore. If you folks have heard about them, they were in the news thanks to, well, IDA's support for my campaigning and many others who wanted to free these guys from being fenced inside a national park unit, which made it especially egregious. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so, there's the question, what do wild Tule elk have to do with veganism? It might seem, for some anyway, a stretch. Whoopsie. And just for context, so again, that's the slide that's behind me, but that's a photograph I took. I'm a professional photographer as well, at Point Reyes Seashore inside the reserve, about the halfway point, and looking north at the middle field there is the rest of the Tomales Point, which is where they were reintroduced to Point Reyes in 1978. And for context, bonus points if anybody can guess what state this is, but the big red arrow is Point Reyes National Seashore, where you were just looking at, just north of San Francisco, about 20 miles. And to bring it to life a little bit more, again, at the top of the Tule elk Reserve at Tomales Point, the pointiest part of that triangle, which is the peninsula that sticks out of the Pacific Ocean north of San Francisco. And to zoom in a bit and illustrate it more, from the wonderful Rhonda Lulu Art illustrator, IDA brought in to make this map, to show where the cows are, roughly, and those three yellow areas is where the three different Tule elk herds are inside Point Reyes National Seashore, a public park run by the National Park Service. And you can see the top three elk look like they're playing tennis or badminton. That represents the, looks like a net there, but it's a 2-mile long fence that runs from the Pacific Ocean all the way to Tomales Bay. It's a little bit longer than 2, but roughly that. And then the brown area below, which is a very large area, about 18,000 acres inside a 71,000 acre park, is given over just to cattle. And the cattle industry fences those those cows in and the elk out. They don't want those 3 blotches of yellow, those animals getting on their property. And they do to some extent in the 2 bottom herds, but not the top herd. That's why they were fenced. But as a result of being fenced, which looks like this in the real world, that is that famous or infamous fence. It also looks like this if you're right on the fence line, which dramatically shows the difference between the impact of a domesticated bovine, a cow, versus a wild bovine, which is originally native to this land for thousands and thousands of years and was reintroduced by the Park Service. A good thing that they did. And they're smaller animals than cows, lighter on the land, they move differently, they move more, and they eat a lot less. They're evolved ecologically for thousands of years to be on the landscape and not only have no negative impact, but to have a positive impact, to do all the things that regenerative cow ranching claims to do, like stimulate soil growth and plant growth. But on the left, regenerative or otherwise, small farm, local farm, organic farm, nonetheless, all of those have that impact on the land. It's an extractive industry. Another example of, again, the difference between what elk do to the land and cows do to the land. My cute phrase for that is elk graze and cows raise the land. So you'll hear them call themselves stewards of the land and historic and help create the park, and all of that is just not true. It's just nonsense. And you can see with your own eyes what's amazing is what the cows actually do, the impact they have, compacting the soil, desiccating the land. And then, you know, as far as we're concerned and why I was a campaigner on this, when you fence elk like this behind an impenetrable 8-foot tall barrier, the result is, in this case, over 475 documented deaths. There were probably more over the course of a decade from fencing elk in and not letting them to move and mate and be free, again, inside a national park where everybody knows, even elk hunters would admit, oh yeah, they should be free to roam in a national park, of course. And again, cows do this to the land. They themselves are, of course, abused animals. They have a destructive impact on the land, no fault of their own, of course. And then ranchers don't want, cattle ranchers, of dairy cows as well as beef cows. Same difference. In fact, dairy cows have a greater impact because they're heavier animals, but that's another detailed story. They don't want wildlife on the land. I mean, they'll tolerate a few, ravens coming in, but they don't want anything that could possibly, quote unquote, eat their grass, which isn't their grass, it's national park grass, but they lay claim to it and they want to push off all the other animals. And that includes, they don't want coyotes on the top left. That was actually off one of the ranch lands, but they don't want them around. Certainly packs of them could take down a small cow, which would hurt profit, right? And then of course the tule elk, and those are wolves, grizzly bear, anything, any predator, any large wild animal is considered something that the ranchers don't want on their land. So there's direct contradiction in the land use between domesticated cows and wild animals. And in case you don't know it, the USDA, Department of Agriculture, has a division called Wildlife Services. And the only service they provide is to kill wild animals, more than 1.5 million. This is an old stat now from 2020. They do that just for ranchers, or majorly for ranchers. And of course, these are called pests and nuisance animals, which is a ridiculous term, of course, for wild animals, but it's what you have to do to raise cows for human consumption or for dairy products for human consumption. And overall, the impact, not just of tule elk, but on, look at the bottom right corner, 4% are wild animals left on Earth by body mass. 60% are now our domesticated animals, wildly overbred. Granted, this size is not to scale, God help us, but humans are 36% of the body mass, 4% only wild animals, and the rest is livestock for human consumption, an incredibly, massively inefficient way to raise food, or as they say now, protein, which is ridiculous because there's tons of protein in plants. We've killed the Earth's wild animals to raise domesticated animals that, of course, get killed while young also. And these are the fine, yummy products, organic valley and grass-fed and regenerative and small family-owned farm, all that wonderful advertising. I used to be in advertising, and hats off to their brilliance, but it's all lies. They are death products, products of death. And a note, if you do go vegan, there will be side effects. These are my feet, of course, so it's a price to pay, but I really recommend trying vegan. If you haven't, you'll be glad you did. And that's all, folks. I think I can come back. Yeah, so that's my 7 minutes and 3 seconds. Thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate your listening.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Jack. And so we are moving along. We really appreciate you being here with us and sharing your knowledge about how veganism relates to your campaign. And now we'd like to bring up Katie Nolan. You got a little preview of some of the wildlife issues, but Katie will go into more detail for you. She's our, as I mentioned earlier, she does run our wild animals campaign. She is the campaign specialist. Hi, Katie.
Yeah, hey everyone. Great to be here. And thank you, Jack. That was a really great introduction into this issue about how wild animals and farmed animals, the issues concerning them go hand in hand. I think we think a lot about farmed animal exploitation and how veganism, resolves that. You're not exploiting animals when you're vegan and not consuming those products, but it plays into all of these other fields as well. Like the wild animals campaign that we run here is very much so influenced by things that are happening in the farmed animals campaign. It's all intertwined. So I'm going to highlight a few general areas of overlap today. So when we think about human-animal conflicts, we often overlook how our choices, especially our dietary ones, drive those conflicts. So land used for grazing and growing livestock feed overlap with vital habitats, as we just saw, forcing animals like wolves, coyotes, and birds into direct conflict with human activity. These situations are not only avoidable, but they're preventable by choosing more sustainable and compassionate lifestyles like veganism, which reduces the need for animal agriculture and eliminates it overall if we could get everyone to go vegan. So Jack touched upon wildlife services. Again, wildlife services is a branch of the USDA. Their basically only role is to kill millions of wild animals. There are a few main conflict areas that they deal with: property damage, threat to human health. There's one other one, but one of the major ones is agricultural conflicts. So predators like wolves, coyotes, bears are common targets, but also surprisingly birds are viewed as threats to farmed animals. So the Wild Animals campaign, we deal a lot with what are called bird damage reports. So Wildlife Services will put together these long reports, and they do this state by state, and they kind of identify what types of birds they perceive as being a threat to agriculture and why. And then they use these documents to justify spending a lot of taxpayer dollars to kill these birds in all sorts of horrendous ways: poisoning, shooting them, they trap them, all kinds of things. And the reason why these birds are a threat is because they are birds. They're just doing normal things that birds do. They're roosting, they're mating, they're migrating, they're eating food. So here are a couple examples that are listed directly in the report. Aquaculture damage: they eat the animals that we have decided only we are allowed to eat. Birds of prey will eat calves, goats, sheep, just something normal that they do. And even just by existing and potentially transmitting diseases, they can be considered a threat and killed. So if you see on this list here, these are all the types of birds that have been identified as potentially posing a threat and so are justified in being killed. And these are our backyard songbirds, cardinals, goldfinch, robin, wild turkeys are on the list, all sorts of waterfowl, egrets, herons, sandhill cranes. It's very mind-blowing to really see when you dig into these reports. So obviously at In Defense of Animals, we're promoting veganism as a solution to all of these problems. If animal agriculture didn't exist, if we didn't exploit farmed animals, we wouldn't have this problem in the first place. These conflicts wouldn't exist. But in addition to that, our Wild Animals campaign has action alerts about these subjects where you can write to the USDA and Wildlife Services and provide comments on their reports. We've been doing that to encourage non-lethal solutions, to encourage education around coexistence with wild animals in communities, all sorts of things like that. Another area of conflict is pollution and habitat destruction. Animal agriculture, farmed animal exploitation is the leading cause of habitat destruction, deforestation, water pollution, soil degradation. It's devastating ecosystems. And things like the rainforest, the Amazon, they're clear cut to grow soy, which is farmed for animal feeds. This is kind of a fun one. If you're a vegan, I know I've gotten the whole like, oh, well, soy's really bad for the environment too. And you can now come back at those people and say, well, somewhere around 70% of the soy that's grown actually feeds those animals that we then kill to eat. So it's this crazy unnecessary cycle that we have. Additionally, factory farms pollute waterways with waste. They poison aquatic ecosystems, which then harms those animals who live there. So again, veganism dramatically reduces the need for land and water resources and helps preserve natural habitats for wild animals who live there. Now, climate change is another area where wild animals and farmed animals are intertwined. Climate change is one of the greatest threats to wild animals today. It's causing rising temperatures, extreme weather, which disrupts ecosystems. If you've heard of that issue between the, I think it's the barred owls and the spotted owls, and how the USDA has decided to kill the barred owls to save the spotted owls. The reason why the barred owls, their habitat has been expanding is because temperatures are changing, climate is changing, their habitats are changing, so it's allowing them to expand into different areas. So it's rooted in this cause that actually animal farming is one of the biggest contributors to. So raising farmed animals for their flesh emits massive amounts of greenhouse gases like methane, CO2, nitrous oxide, which all accelerate climate change and lead to these things that are causing habitat loss. So again, plant-based eating is the way to go. It will help create more stable environment for all species, and we can kind of stop that degradation of habitats in its tracks, hopefully. All right. And I think I'll be handing that off to Brittany now. If I can figure out where Zoom went. There we go.
Yes, thank you so much, Katie. That was really helpful and enlightening to get some of the gory details about what happens behind the scenes. So now we're inviting Brittany to join us here, and I was wondering if you might. Now remember, Brittany is our captive animals campaign specialist, so she will share from her perspective about the importance of veganism.
Hello, everybody. All right, I will share my screen. Okay, let's see. All right, is this viewable?
Yes.
Okay.
So
All right, so captive animals and veganism. I want to start out by prefacing with the idea that there are many people who advocate against animals being in zoos and marine parks and circuses, but they are not vegan. And let's see, this is not allowing me to move to the next slide for some reason. Let's see. Sorry, just a moment. Okay, there we go. So yeah, as I was saying, there are many people in society, in the world, who take a stance against wild animals being confined and used for entertainment and profit in facilities like zoos, marine parks, the circus industry, and so forth. But they haven't made the connection to veganism and the importance of being vegan, of living a vegan lifestyle, to really be ethically consistent. So veganism and the fight against captive animal exploitation are connected through the principles of anti-speciesism, ethical consistency, and animal liberation. And it's very important to really honor the connection between all of the different industries that exploit animals. And it's important as an individual to be ethically consistent in terms of not just industries that people, might support by taking their children to, like zoos and marine parks, going to the circus, but also in their own homes, what people choose to consume, the products that people choose to buy, eat, and wear, and so forth. So both factory farming and captivity stem from speciesism, the belief that human interests and desires are superior to those of other animals. We can all agree on the idea that speciesism it's a form of discrimination against non-human animals. And this applies to the food industry and all of the industries that exploit animals for profit. Animals on factory farms experience psychological distress and debilitating physical conditions, as do captive animals in facilities like zoos, marine parks, and labs. Veganism fosters compassion for all sentient beings. In terms of rejecting animal cruelty in food and advocating for animals suffering in captive facilities such as zoos and marine parks. So again, it's really about ethical consistency and making the connection between the different forms of exploitation and the different industries that exploit animals in different ways. And it all comes down to profit. Every form of animal exploitation comes down to money, right? Greed and money and profit. So when we look at the connections between these industries, we can think about how captive animals in zoos, aquariums, circuses, and marine parks suffer for human amusement in much the same way that farmed animals suffer in factory farms. Now, there are, of course, some significant differences in that animals in zoos or marine parks are not having their throats slit, as happens in slaughterhouses. So, I mean, there are certainly differences between the types of harm that is inflicted on different species that are being exploited for different purposes in different industries. But we can all agree that all of these animals are suffering psychological torment and suffering from debilitating physical issues. Veganism is a lifestyle that rejects the exploitation of captive animals, whether they are in factory farms, zoos, marine parks, the circus, etc. So animals who are being confined and exploited in factory farms, they are being held captive, right? They are being held captive against their will, just as the animals who are used for entertainment in these other industries, like zoos, marine parks, and the circus. So if everybody, and I know we all agree on this here, but if everyone in society could think about the idea that the fight against captivity is part of the same movement to respect animals as individuals, not commodities, and that by choosing a vegan lifestyle, people help dismantle industries that exploit animals. Veganism has a significant impact on captive animals, as it stops the funding of animal agriculture, which fuels captivity. So some things to think about is that the meat, dairy, and egg industries, the food industry, contributes to the capture, breeding, and exploitation of animals. For example, calves born to dairy cows are separated from their mothers and are often sold to petting zoos, rodeos, or slaughter. Now, I should say that the norm is that these calves are sent to slaughter. However, many people don't know that, for example, calves are also sold to rodeos and petting zoos. And so that's important to keep in mind, again, the connections between these different industries and the different ways in which they're exploited. And then some zoos and other captive animal facilities have direct ties to factory farms for sourcing meat for the carnivorous animals. In terms of confinement and suffering, some things to think about. Whether it's a pig in a gestation crate or an elephant in a zoo, captivity denies animals their natural behaviors, social structures, and obviously their freedom. Many captive animals develop what's known as psychosis, which is a psychological condition, and that is similar to the extreme stress seen in farmed animals before slaughter, and also in farmed animals who are suffering in factory farms before they go to slaughter. So zoochosis is a really important concept for people to be aware of. Zoochosis is again, the psychological suffering of animals in zoos. And so there are these connections and similarities between the way that animals in the food industry suffer and animals in other industries. The conservation myth. Zoos and aquariums often claim to support conservation, but prioritize profit over genuine animal welfare. And that should say, the word many should not be in there, because I would say that zoos and aquariums, generally, I mean, they do prioritize profit over animal welfare. They are selling tickets. They are trying to get visitors and attendees to come in, as many numbers as possible. Of course, there are some variations, but they do prioritize profit over animal welfare. Just like how humane meat is a misleading marketing tool, the conservation narrative is often used to justify captivity while doing little to help wild populations. Veganism weakens the exotic pet trade, which is something interesting to think about. The wild animals who end up in captivity are bred for human entertainment and profit. This demand fuels the exotic animal trade, which captures and exploits animals like primates, big cats, and birds. Something else to think about is that zoos and aquariums profit from animal agriculture in another way. They're by selling animal-based foods at their venues. So zoos and marine parks, they have hot dogs and hamburgers and just really unhealthy food that, those venues are supporting animal agriculture. with the food that they sell at these places. Some zoos directly contribute to the exploitation of farmed animals by breeding and slaughtering them to feed captive carnivores. And so a vegan lifestyle reduces the support for institutions that confine and exploit animals for profit. So again, people who feel strongly that wild animals should not be confined in zoos and marine parks, if they can adapt their lifestyle, and I say lifestyle because veganism is a lifestyle, not a diet. Okay, veganism is a lifestyle that is centered on plant-based food, but there's many other forms of animal exploitation that that make, when you reject animal exploitation, it's really veganism as a lifestyle, not a diet. So if people can make this connection and live a vegan lifestyle, it reduces their support for these facilities, these businesses that confine and exploit animals for profit. And the last, I believe this is my last one. Protecting wild animals from habitat destruction. And Katie is the wild animals campaign specialist, but there's a direct connection, of course, between wild animal exploitation and captive animal exploitation. We know that animal agriculture is a leading cause of deforestation, habitat loss, and climate change, which forces wild animals into captivity when their natural habitats are destroyed. That's really important. Going vegan helps preserve ecosystems, reducing the number of displaced wild animals who end up in zoos or the wildlife trade. And the idea of ending animal entertainment, circuses, marine parks, and zoos exploit animals for profit, again, while also selling animal products. So, these zoos, for example, who claim to care so much about animals, are not only confining them and selling tickets for people to come and, gawk at them and take photos and, just these animals are on display, but these facilities are also selling animal products. So, and veganism promotes an ethical stance against all forms of animal exploitation, including these industries. Oh, one more. Marine captivity in the fishing industry. Veganism means not supporting the fishing industry, which not only kills billions of fish, but also captures dolphins, sea turtles, and whales as bycatch. This reduces the demand for captive marine animals in places like SeaWorld and decreases the harm done to wild ocean life. And, hold on. Yeah, last little thing. Veganism is aligned with supporting conservation without captivity. And again, zoos, they always play the conservation card, and they claim to be, so supportive of conservation and everything, but there's a lot of propaganda, right, that zoos put out there. So it's about ethical conservation efforts that protect animals in the wild, rather than breeding them in captivity under the guise of conservation. And the idea of veganism promoting funding for wildlife protection programs instead of zoo breeding programs. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you so much for going into those details about the ethical dilemmas that we have when we think about captive animals, and if we're not having that in alignment with our actions of what we do as people when we choose veganism. So thank you. Really starting to connect the dots here, and I think that's our intention today for you. I think for now, we are going to move over to Fleur Dawes, our Communications Director and Director of International Partnerships. Thank you, Fleur.
Hello, everyone. I don't know if I can also pin if somebody on the technical end could pin my my visual, because I'm using two different computers today. Because you will definitely want to see my beautiful co-host, Judy. I'm going to be talking to you about anti-dog meat and anti-cat meat campaigning that we've done.
So Claire, we
So-
may need to, if you stop sharing your screen, we could do the pinning if you like.
Ah, thank you.
Yes. There we go. Now we're good to go. Mhm.
Fabulous. Well, yes, this is my beautiful co-host Judy, and believe it or not, she was actually raised for meat. So just like, you know, we would raise pigs or cows here, she was raised as a meat dog, and her breed is considered a meat dog. And I've been really just learning so much in this session, and especially from your comments in the chat. And I think there's a really important point here that about the deep-rooted cultural causes of meat eating and who we eat is a lot to do with our cultural conditioning. That's all it is. It's Leah touched at the start about it being natural, normal, and nice to eat meat, and that is exactly how people in all around the world are conditioned to eat animals. And it can be very difficult to see a dog or a cat in a slaughter truck or in a farm and believe that anyone could want to harm them or eat them, when they're, you know, we know they're worth so much more than just a few moments of pleasure, a few bites of meat. It's not worth giving up their entire lives. So anyway, I'm going to share a little bit about our work, and I'm really excited to talk about this. So let me share my presentation, and I'll try and be as quick as possible. So In Defense of Animals has been working on the dog and cat meat trade for 30 years, almost longer than any other organization. And this is one of our rescues. You can see very, very similar pictures to what Leah was showing earlier. These are industrially farmed animals, but they happen to be a different animal just because they're in a different country. That's the only difference. Then, you know, people who eat dogs are not any better or worse than anyone who eats any other animal. It's purely where we're raised. So these are two other dogs who we saved. You can see they're now doing much better. And I wanted to show you a quick video. This is actually Judy when our partners rescued her. So you can see there she is on her dog meat farm, being rescued, very terribly scared. And today, you know, she has all of those kinds of issues. You know, one thing that I notice is when I leave, and if I leave her with food in her bowl, she will actually save that food because she's so worried that she won't ever get another meal again. And I'm sure that was because she was starved in the dog meat cage as a young dog. So yeah, the difference between whether you eat a dog or a cow or a horse or snails or frogs. You know, if you're in France, you probably would have grown up eating horses, eating frogs, eating snails. Just because we live in the US and we grow up eating chickens and cows and pigs, it's really no different. It's no different. You know, I had no choice over being born, you know, the color of my skin, the sex, my biological sex. This is where I was born, and it's totally the same with the animals. Like, they have no choice. We're the only ones who have choice to make a difference for these animals, and all animals are equal. So I'm actually going to touch on something, come back to something that Leah started off, because I think it's such an important point. We're going to go there. And then I do want to say also that In Defense of Animals has been really instrumental in changing the fate of these animals. So we passed, you know, with the help of many different activists, we were instrumental in ending the dog meat trade in South Korea. They passed a ban. So Judy is one of the final dogs who will ever be killed and eaten for meat. So we had Korean War veterans speaking out. We had celebrities speaking out. There's Priscilla Presley, Katherine Heigl, and we were holding events, all kinds of things that over 30 years. This is one in LA, Yoga Stops Yulin. So we're also campaigning for dogs and cats in other places, in China, Vietnam. We want to stop it everywhere, and that's just the first step. We want to make sure that all animals are safe from exploitation and abuse. And here, the crux of it for me is the only difference is your attitude. It depends where you were raised, if you're eating one of these animals or the other one. That's all there is to it. There's no othering of people. Here's one of some of our other dogs, of course. Sorry, the cats who we are saving too. Unfortunately, cats are also eaten in other countries, equally as despicable and detestable as eating a dog or a chicken. No difference at all. They are all suffering. So yeah, every time I would love to see as much animal advocacy and outrage for eating farmed animals, our traditional farmed animals, as there is against eating cats and dogs. So thank you again for listening, and it's been very educational, this session, and thank you for supporting In Defense of Animals to end all animal exploitation.
Well, thank you so much, Fleur. Wow, so you can see that all of our campaigns actually relate to veganism, and that is the foundation of all of our work here at In Defense of Animals. And we were really excited and thrilled to bring this presentation to you today to show the connections and to help you to make choices that bring you into an alignment with your values. So we might have a moment or two for a question, and I was wondering if Mary, if you might have seen any in the chat that you think we could address. And also Bob, perhaps. Jack, you have a question you think?
Jack has a question, yeah?
Yeah, a simple one. Just if people are inspired from watching this to take initial steps toward veganism, does In Defense of Animals, as if I didn't know, offer support for that?
Well, I think Leah can answer that question for you. You may need to unmute.
Mute, Leah.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Jack, for bringing that up. Yes, I was going to mention that too. Yes, we have a brand new vegan mentor support group. Yes, starting, it already started last month, but we have our second one coming up a week from Monday. So hopefully Mary can put that link in the chat. And also we have a brand new vegan wake up call campaign page on our website, has a video to go with it, going very much in depth, and a brand new page all on humane washing, going much more into depth on that too. I would like to leave everyone with, you need to see the truth too. And we must talk about it, but on occasion, people need to actually feel and see what animals really go through. Dairy is Scary changed me forever. It's only 5 minutes. It's on YouTube. Almost 7 million views around the world. You could just send that to your relatives, everyone, your friends. If it comes up in conversation, do you want to know what really happens in the dairy industry, including humane, organic, local, free range? Dairy is Scary. Dominion. Watch Dominion on YouTube. And then, of course, you can partake of all of our wonderful resources here at IDA too. And thank you to all the great campaigners and all of their advocacy.
Thank you, Leah. Yeah, so for Veganuary, Leah put together a vegan wake-up call, and that has a lot of these resources available on the website. And so Mary can put that into the chat. I think that would be very helpful, a great one-stop shop for all things vegan related to Veganuary. So I think, Mary, any question that we want to perhaps answer before we close out today?
Yeah, I did keep up with all of the links. Yes, there was one question that I thought was intriguing, was about the dog meat, cat meat industry in South Korea. And someone was asking, since we are banning, the dog meat industry in South Korea, will it be replaced by the consumption of other types of meat from other animals? What do you think, Flor?
That is a super great question. I really like that. Unfortunately, the consumption of meat tends to go hand in hand with economic development. If you know anything about South Korea, you will probably know that it's been booming in recent decades. So yes, I think we probably will see an expansion of meat eating. Anyone who has heard about Korean barbecue, it's a big thing. Yeah, it's very possible that it will increase other types of animal eating. One thing I would say is that a lot of these campaigns that In Defense of Animals runs are what I would call gateway campaigns. So a lot of the people who I know and love very, very dearly came into and became vegans as a result of one of these campaigns. Maybe it was animal experimentation, which we haven't talked about today, but my dear best friend came in through that. Maybe it's because you heard about the Thule elk or the wild horses who are being killed by cattle ranchers, and you think, wait a second here, like this doesn't feel good. I need to reconcile this. So yes, we are fighting the dog meat campaign. We are fighting the cat meat campaign. We are fighting for the Thule elk. We are fighting for wild horses. We are fighting for farmed animals, all at the same time. And of course, we want to kind of take it step by step. Of course, we want it change as fast as possible. This is a crisis for animals right now. Millions, if not billions, of animals are suffering. It can't come soon enough, but we need to get that foot in the door. And sometimes that foot in the door is one of these campaigns. Great question. Thank you.
Wonderful, Flor. Thank you. Yeah, everyone has such great things to say in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for can we have a Jim says, can we have a marathon, a 24-hour Zoom like this? Totally
I
agree.
think this would be great to do more than just one time.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. Okay, yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're actually at time, but this was wonderful, and it's so good to hear from all you campaigners. I love listening to you talk. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
We appreciate you helping us, Mary, in the chat box. We appreciate everyone who's joined us today. Your presence here is what makes this an important talk for us, because we are connecting the dots for all of you, and also for people that you know. Perhaps this talk will help you advocate more for veganism in your communities, and you're welcome to share this with people that you think could benefit from it. So thank you to everyone for joining us today on behalf of In Defense of Animals, on behalf of our campaigns team. And also, we are just thrilled to have you. We hope you'll join us for our next Fireside Chat. We do these every month. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening wherever you are in the world, and consider going vegan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
May the fur be with you.